First with the latest news, national and local news.
You are listening to the Internet Radio News Report of the news. If it's news to you, it's news to us.
You give us 22 minutes and we'll give you a piece of cheese.
At the top of the news this hour, televangelist Pat Robertson doesn't mind presidential candidates who will steal your freedoms and stuff Jesus down your throat. But he just doesn't care much for the ones who want to make rich people pay their fair share of taxes.
I see these young people, these so-called millenniums, going to one of these Bernie Sanders rallies, and I think, you're a bunch of ignorant sheep. They don't, I mean, they're cheering a man who wants to take away all their money. Well, what is it?
You know, I refer in the book to the Founding Fathers as the Founding Prophets.
Yeah.
And the reason I do that is not because, you know, they were like Ezekiel or Jeremiah or Isaiah or anything like that, but because in their writings they were so familiar with two things, human nature and human history. And when you study both, it's hard to avoid certain conclusions about what happens, and you see the same sorts of patterns. I don't say history repeats itself, but it is kind of a variation on a tune. And you see the same sorts of things all throughout history. And I was actually just reading Justice Robert Jackson. He was one of our Supreme Court justices, was the prosecutor in the Nuremberg trials against the Nazis. And he was commenting on the founders. He said, never before had a group of men searched the annals of human history so completely to figure out this secret of how you can make a free society possible. So I mentioned the Founding Prophets because there's so many things they say that, of course, is in a bit more flowery English than we're used to. But it could have been said yesterday. And a lot, in my opinion at least, I respect Bernie Sanders for how honest he is, but I don't partake of his views. But a lot of things related to banking institutions, monopolies, class warfare type issues, breakdown of morality, on all these issues, the Founding Fathers had things to say. And like I said, it was completely prophetic, a lot of what it could have been said yesterday.
They also had a balanced view of human nature. They weren't utopian at all. And Madison had that wonderful quote, if men were angels, you wouldn't need government. But they really understand that men were sinful. And the sinful nature of man, they set up a government that would keep man's sin from breaking out.
Yeah. Well, the thing about that is we have the benefit of, the somewhat dubious benefit of 20th century history, the bloodiest century in history. The founders knew that human nature was that which invented and created Auschwitz, but also painted the Mona Lisa. Carried out the purges in Stalin Russia, and also wrote Mozart's symphonies. And so this duality, this very Judeo-Christian assumption about both the depravity as well as the magnificence of human nature, they incorporated that into basically everything they did as far as setting up our government.
Well, what about now? It looks like there are forces that wish to destroy that.
I think there are. I think a lot of it, you were asking about my generation in particular. I'm a millennial. I think my generation has a lot of really potentially great qualities. We're a very passionate generation. When we want to go out into the business world, into the career world, we want to do things that make a difference, and I think that's all good. But I would say in general, and it's not so much a critique of my generation, so much as just a diagnosis of it. We were raised by a generation before us, and there's a lack of groundedness. We don't really know where we came from. We don't know our national story.
According to our friends at rightwingwatch.org, the 700 Club host made the remarks while chatting with Joshua Charles, an author and Tea Party activist who previously co-authored a book with Glenn Beck about his new weekly World WorldNet Daily published book, Liberty's Secrets. Crazy old Pat Robertson in the news again.
Very amusing.
And Robertson isn't the only right-wing member of the American Taliban making a bunch of cuckoo yip-yap these days. On Tuesday's episode of the Hagee Hotline, Pastor John Hagee declared that America will be lost forever and immediately if a certain uppity you-know-what is allowed to name a replacement for the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia.
Justice Scalia's death makes this presidential election a battle for the future of this nation. If the president is allowed by the Senate to appoint a Supreme Court justice, America as we know it will be lost forever and immediately. A fifth liberal justice on the court will pass the socialist agenda of the president with lightning speed. Every person listening to this telecast should contact their senator and encourage them not to consider any candidate to replace Justice Scalia on the Supreme Court until the next president has been elected by the American people. For once, let the voice of the American people make the call, not the political establishment in Washington, D.C. This president has a master's degree in deception. I won't get started on that because this is only a 30-minute show. But it is also the responsibility of Senator McConnell to block the president's presentation. The Senate does not receive anything that McConnell does not okay. One, if McConnell does so, we call upon those senators in the U.S. Senate who want this nation to be preserved to boycott any person that the President of the United States put forward. And just as a matter of history, when the shoe was on the other foot in 1960, the Democratic Party passed a law forbidding a president in the last year of his presidency to select a Supreme Court justice. Strange how history comes back to bite you. But now the shoe is on the other foot. They, the Democrats, should live by the law they established and stand down until the next president is elected and let the influence of the American people make that direction.
Problem with that, of course, is that the Democrats never passed any such law, but merely passed a non-binding resolution urging President Eisenhower not to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court should one arise, using a recess appointment, as he had done on several occasions. Right-wing religio-fascists on parade across America.
If you only had a brain.
And conservative nutbag and fearmonger Alex Jones, host of the InfoWars radio show, refuses to accept the medical evidence that it was age and corpulence that caused the Supreme Court Justice's death on Saturday. Therefore, he comes to the only other logical conclusion: Obama killed him.
And I said, something big is about to happen. I want to have a big war game scenario in the conference room for at least 2 hours. I want to shoot special reports. And I sat in that office Saturday telling them something big's about to happen. They're all witnesses to it. And, of course, Scalia was already dead. It was that morning. I called him about 10. I was like, something big. And it's not that Scalia is that big. He's huge. But it's that they do it, and seismically what it means is that it's happening. Just like when you're sitting there at the park bench, you feel somebody looking at you, you turn around, and the person's 100 yards away staring right at you. You know, your sixth sense. I was just like, you got to come into the office. Something big's about to happen. And we were here for 7 hours preparing and planning and for scenarios of false flags and assassinations and a sense of urgency to the public. And then meanwhile, we're shooting Facebook mentions for 2 hours. And people keep saying, talk about Scalia, talk about Scalia, talk about Scalia. And I'm in this desperate 2-hour rant. It was like an hour and 50 minutes long. The video stopped once. It was in 2 parts. Live in the conference room with sweat running down. They weren't sweating. I had sweat running down me. It's 65 degrees in here, folks, and I'm sweating right now. That happens when I'm freaked out, okay? But my brain's going a million miles an hour. And all I can tell you is all hell's about to break loose. Folks, this isn't a game. Maybe they'll find the governor with a pillow over his face. Maybe that's the new thing. All these conservatives that are fighting back that are real conservatives, they're all being found with pillows over their faces.
And according to Jones, the Kenyan usurper is not yet finished with his murderous, crazy murder and killing spree.
And the PSYOP is deep on this one. Like Building 7 had a lot of depth to it, didn't it? It sure did. And its own little railway station and things. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's continue here. You used to work there. You're a nice person. But for me, it's the instantly reporting an anonymous call. Obama knew hours before. It comes out of a small TV station, and we're told nothing to see here. The body's been flown back to Virginia. Just you're crazy to ask questions, Joe Biggs. I mean, I guess we're crazy to ask questions about Kennedy, too.
Very interesting. I mean, like you said, John Poindexter was a millionaire who gave money to the Democrat Party. This guy was awarded military honors from President Obama. Now he has this ranch that he comes to. He's coming towards the end of his term. He said he would change America. This is his time to do it. With Scalia being gone, then they can appoint someone like Loretta Lynch. If you go to Drudge Report right now and actually pull up on the left side of the top up there, it shows that they are talking about Loretta Lynch possibly being the person to fill his shoes. What happens when you take out someone like that? He was a true conservative. He was the only one we had in there. You bring in Loretta Lynch into this situation, what happens? Obama can really change America.
That's it.
And then what happens? You bring in a socialist like Bernie Sanders or someone who's completely evil like Hillary Clinton for that final blow. This is probably
This is it. This is the final assault. This is the beginning of the final war.
This is the most important thing we're going to see. 2016 will be the biggest year of our lives.
Let's go to Kit Daniels. Kit?
Yes, Alex. It's really interesting to note that Presidio County is a very it's a Democratic-run county. You know, just like you said, the ranch is democratically owned and controlled.
The Democrats like to be close to the border. There's some goodies that go back and forth. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was one of the few counties in Texas that voted for Obama in 2008, and I also believe in 2012. I mean, there's probably only about 6 counties that I know of that are heavily Democratic, and Presidio County is one of them. So it'd be very easy to control the local officials there when they're on your side.
Exactly. Scalia walked into the perfect bear trap. The whole thing was perfect.
A perfect bear trap for an imperfect bear. The PSYOPs are not the only thing deep in the InfoWars studio. More news after this.
It's time to take your medication.
What's wrong, Madge? You look irregular, out of sorts.
I should say I am, Lucinda. I haven't taken a good dump in 3 days.
Have you tried Phil's colon blow?
Who the hell are you?
I'm the Phillips colon blow lady.
Well, that answers that.
And take a look at this diagram.
I love diagrams.
Isn't this a radio commercial?
See how a sink gets all plugged up with clogs of hair and grease?
Yucky.
I'll say the same thing happens to your colon. But instead of hair and grease, your colon is clogged up by cheese, hamburger, and French fries.
Oh, dear. How do I get clean again?
Simple. Drink 8 ounces of Phil's colon blow. It works just like those liquid drain cleaners, but without harming your delicate pipes. And the horrible taste will kill your appetite for days, giving your sensitive colon time to relax and heal.
Give me that bottle.
Wait, there's 2 things you gotta do first. First, you gotta pay for it, and then...
Oh, you were right about the taste. It's horrid.
Jesus, Madge, you need to be sitting on the toilet when you take it. That's how fast it works. New Phil's Colon Blow. Available at supermarkets and drugstores near you.
Clean up on aisle 3, 4, and 5, 6.
Please ignore this jingle.
We continue with today's Internet Radio News Report of the news with this story. An East Texas emergency room has been closed after bats began to spread throughout the building. In a statement posted Tuesday night on the Kilgore Police Department social media pages, Good Shepherd Medical Center said a number of small bats had moved into the Longview, Texas-based hospital's freestanding emergency room in nearby Kilgore. The bats had moved into the building's walls and ceilings, with some migrating into the area that receives ambulances. Good Shepherd says it's working with the city of Kilgore, which owns the building, and Allegiance Specialty Hospital, which manages it, to get the bats removed. In the meantime, Good Shepherd has decided it's in the best interest of its patients and staff to suspend emergency medical services in the building until the bats can be removed. I, for one, blame Obamacare.
Tabloid trash.
A school in England is asking parents to put down the goddamn bong when they're dropping their kids off at school. A British primary school sent a letter home with students begging their parents not to smoke marijuana while dropping off their kids in the morning. Some of the older students at St. John's C of E Primary School in Radcliffe have noticed the puffing parents, and that's led to a serious safeguarding concern, according to the letter. The school said police have been made aware and will be monitoring the school. Please respect our school as a place of learning and make sure you set an appropriate example within the community, Deputy Head Teacher Deborah Binns wrote in the note sent home February 11th.
You'll laugh about this later.
And now this breaking news from the Internet Radio News Report of the News Newsroom. If you hear the sound of a knife slicing through skin and the spurting sound of blood as it squirts from a severed carotid artery, you may well be hearing GOP presidential one-time supposed unbeatable frontrunner Jeb Bush on hearing the news that the wildly popular South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley has endorsed, not Bush, but Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Governor Nikki Haley will endorse the Florida Senator Marco Rubio for president, ending months of speculation, giving Rubio a much-needed bounce heading into Saturday's South Carolina Republican primary. The endorsement was confirmed by the Charleston, South Carolina Post and Courier by a source familiar with the governor's thinking. Haley joins U.S. Senator Tim Scott and upstate Congressman Trey Gowdy as the most visible South Carolina politicians to go with Rubio. Her endorsement is the most critical prize of all, as she is both the elected leader of the Republican Party in the state and an emerging star on the national stage. This 11th hour endorsement still gives Haley time to appear on the stump with Rubio for the rest of the week as the GOP battle races to the finish line. Haley's decision-making process was kept a well-guarded secret to the end, as she told reporters even yesterday that she was unsure she would make a pick. Bush campaign staffers have been seen removing the former governor's belt and shoelaces, and they are hiding his supply of neckties just in case. Repeating, in what is certain to be a fatal blow to the ill-fated presidential campaign of one-time indisputable, unbeatable frontrunner Jeb Bush, Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina endorsing Marco Rubio. What a world. What a world. And now we hope this will cheer Jeb Bush up a little bit. Here's correspondent Landon Dowlett Singh with a fresh, positive outlook.
Whoa, this is a little scary. How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to another Most Amazing Top 10. Today's common question of the day is, what do you guys think is the absolute worst way to die? So this right here is the top 10 worst ways to die, and let's get right into it. So starting off this list and coming in at number 10, we have dying in a plane crash. It is every traveler's nightmare, especially when turbulence occurs. Although you're in a plane crash, it's not necessarily you're gonna die. In fact, of the 568 US plane crashes between 1980 and 2000, more than 90% of the crash victims actually survive. In fact, your chances of surviving your next flight is 99.99, which isn't too bad. But imagine you were in a plane crash, how scary it would be. You have no idea what's happening. You have this small window to look out of, and all you're thinking is, oh my god, the ground is coming closer and closer. The oxygen mask starts to fall. Everyone is totally freaking out, losing their minds. There is panic in this plane. You're not sure when the high impact is going to occur. And are you going to smack into land and instantly die or get crushed? Or are you going to be in the water and now you have to fight for your life by swimming? So now this brings us into the number 9 spot, and we're talking about drowning. Drowning refers to a process where the person experiences respiratory impairments as a result of the submersion and immersion in liquid. Drowning is the third leading cause of intentional injury death worldwide. And it's estimated that 372,000 people annually die. So if you were to estimate that, that's about 10 people per day. In Europe, drowning was used as a form of capital punishment, and it was one of the most practiced forms of execution until the 17th and 18th century. Can you guys just imagine going underwater? The first thing that comes to your mind is panic, freak out. You have no idea when your last breath is. You're just gasping for air. And everything just suddenly goes dark. You're blacking out, in and out of consciousness. You have no idea what's going on. What is your body doing? Your body actually fights for survival. But at this point, there's just nothing you can do. Coming in at number... we have being burned alive. Many societies have used this as an execution method for such crimes as treason, rebellious actions by slaves, heresy, witchcraft, and demonstrated sexual deviancy, such as incest or homosexuality. The best known type of execution of death by burning is when the guilty is bound to a large wooden stake. Just imagine being tied down to a board, and you're being doused by gasoline or anything flammable. And then you hear the match lit, and you're just there, helpless. Your skin starts to burn and you feel everything. The panic kicks in, you're looking around, and your skin starts to boil up. Usually people don't die from the fire itself, they die from the carbon monoxide poisoning, which is smoke inhalation. So unless you're closed off in a room, it's going to take you some time to pass out or die. And what's worse than being burned alive is adrift at sea, and this comes in at number 7. There's many hazards in the ocean that will decrease the chances of survival if you are adrift at sea. You are most likely to suffer from dehydration. So imagine being out there in the open waters lost. There's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do but try to survive. So you're out there barely surviving. Some of you guys are probably wishing that you would die right now. Hyperthermia is another thing to watch out for if you're adrift at sea. Hyperthermia is when your body loses more heat than it produces, and your core body temperature drops. If you've made it through starvation, dehydration, and hyperthermia, well, guess what? You still need to worry about sea creatures. There is so many things to look out for. Imagine piranhas. These things are so little, but they'll eat you alive, or a shark. So now this easily brings me into the number 6 spot. We've kind of already talked about it, but we're talking about getting eaten alive by an animal. You just lowered yourself in the food chain and you've just become prey. Imagine the animal biting you limb for limb, and all you can do is watch and scream. You're in such shock you have no idea if you're alive or if you've just died. You're seeing things that you've never seen before and you don't ever want to see again. There's just so much blood everywhere. There's bones being snapped out, and your body is bending in ways that it should never be bending in. Or imagine this, being eaten alive by a snake whole. If you weren't crushed to death, you're now living inside of a snake just waiting to die. Starvation comes in at number 5. Starvation can cause permanent organ damage and eventually death. There's insufficient scientific data on exactly how long people can live without food. Although the length of time obviously varies with an individual's percent of body fat and general health, so usually with adults, starvation can lead to death within 8 to 12 weeks. There's cases of individual people living for 25 weeks without food. Starvation usually begins when the individual loses about 30% of their body weight. Once the loss reaches more than 40%, death is almost inevitable. On average, around 25,000 people die every day due to hunger or hunger-related causes. This means every 3.5 seconds, one person dies. Moving on to number 4, we have freeze to death. Imagine it's getting colder and colder and colder. You're probably living in Canada, but jokes aside, your movements are getting slower. You're surrounded by cold, and there's just nothing you can do. You're having severe problems breathing, and you can see your skin turning blue and black. You know you're gonna die, you just don't know when. Your body starts to shiver uncontrollably, and you are noticing that you've stopped moving. The only thing you feel is your heart beating, your thoughts in your head, and your eyes are wandering around. During this whole process, you're in and out of consciousness. You're thinking like, was this my last breath? Okay, was this one my last breath? Is this one gonna be my last breath? And then all of a sudden, you black out and you thought you just died. But no, you wake up, you're breathing slow all over again, and you're going through this whole process again. Now I know it's hard to imagine something worse than that, but moving into number 3 spot, we're talking about falling. You're on top of a really tall building and you went a little bit too far off the edge. Or imagine this, you're skydiving and your parachute malfunctions. Scary, I know. You're now falling into your inevitable death. You are fully aware of everything that's happening, and you know that when you're gonna hit the ground, you're gonna suffer from severe injuries, and if they're so severe, you're gonna die. But a lot of you guys might have a little bit of hope while you're falling that you know what, you might live. So you have all these thoughts just rushing through your head, you're freaking out, you're panicking. A lot of you might pass out in the air because you just couldn't take it, you couldn't handle it. And for the others, you hope that you just pass out in the air and then that's it for you in the sky, instead of plummeting to the ground and feeling everything. Falls is actually the second leading cause of accidental death worldwide. In 2003, unintentional falls resulted in 556,000 deaths. Okay, coming into number 2 spot, for the worst way to die, we have being tortured. Torture continues to be practiced today. In fact, torture takes place in the majority of the countries in the world, as many as 90% of them. It is most often takes place in places of detention, whether it's initially police lockup, interrogation rooms, prison systems, or any other places that people are deprived of their freedom. While such techniques from the Middle Ages are no longer used on a large scale, the techniques of torture are still just as cruel, inhumane, and painful to the victims. The scariest part about being tortured is you have no idea their intentions and what's going to happen to you. You're going to be going through enduring pain. There's going to be so much pain, you just want to die instantly, but you're being tortured, so that person is not going to let you die. I don't know what's worse, the anticipation of the whole thing, or the fact that you're slowly being dismembered. Okay, so finally we've made it to the number 1 spot. This to me is the absolute worst way to die. Let me know if you guys agree, but I'm talking about being buried alive. There is lots of fears that you're going to be battling. There's being claustrophobic, starvation, dehydration, hyperthermia, and these are just to name a few of the many things. Just imagine being trapped with nothing to do but listen to your own thoughts. Anyone would go absolutely crazy. They would become delusional and panic. You're slowly being suffocated, there's no air to breathe, and again, there's nothing you can do about it. And guess what? The soil above you acts as a sound barrier, so there's no point yelling out for help because there's no one can hear you. Unless grandpa's hearing aids are turned up like mega high, you're just there to die. So you're just there and you want to die quickly, but there's nothing you can do to take your own life. Your body can actually survive 8 to 10 days without water. And if for some reason you're able to get water, well, you're just gonna prolong your life and you can live about 3 weeks without food. And then your insides just start eating itself out, your body's just deteriorating. I mean, how petrifying is this whole situation? Well, there you guys have it. This was the top 10 worst ways to die. Hopefully I didn't scare you guys off too much, and let me know, what did you guys think should have made this list? And also, what is your number 1? Well, thank you so much for watching this top 10. I'll see you guys next Friday. We do this all over again.
We'll return with more news after this.
Time to go to the bathroom.
This is a little song I wrote for my schnitzel. My schnitzel has a first name. It's John. My schnitzel has a second name. It's Wissman. Although if you spell it in German, those two S's look like letter B somewhat. I love to eat it every day, and this is why I always say, if you want schnitzel, get your own, and leave my schnitzel pork alone. My schnitzel is so tasty, and so much fun to cook. It fills mein house mit yummy smells, and no, you cannot look. I serve it mit a noodle dish. I'll send a picture if you wish. But touch my schnitzel, here's the facts. I chop your hand off mit an axe. My schnitzel likes the movies. It likes to go to fairs. The schnitzel in my lederhosen gets me lots of stares. My schnitzel likes to ride a bike. I let you sniff it if you like. But get that thought out of your head. You touch my schnitzel and you're dead. My schnitzel is my lover. It's warm and fairly thick. It asks me to be gentle when I stab it with my...
Another sleazy politician.
Hello, I'm Donna Gale Barnyard, a frequent blogger for the Tea Party Nation website. It seems as if Satan is having his way with America, like a homosexual Boy Scout leader doing terrible things to a naked and bound and gagged, terrified young Boy Scout in the butt. And that's part of the problem. That is why the so-called gay are so successful in portraying their lifestyle as happy and healthy and normal. It's because we, good, decent, God-fearing Christian Americans that make up the vast, overwhelming majority that would have elected the Mormon heretic and that nice Mr. Ryan last November if the Kenyan usurper had not stolen yet another election. We are too decent to tell you about the things that they do that are far too disgusting to be talked about by decent people where children can hear them. Did you know that homosexuals urinate on each other? It's true. It's part of some sort of initiation process, I think, like dogs marking their territory. A newly inducted homosexual must be urinated on by a circle of homosexual men. I'm not making this up. You can find instances of this all over the internet on sites that I will in no way share with you, for they are far too revolting to actually exist. Did you know that they play with each other's poop? That's also another fact that is well known among the homosexual community, but never discussed in polite society. So when your son comes home from his next Boy Scout jamboree, make sure to pay close attention to his fingernails. Look at them closely. Sniff them. If they smell like poop, then you will know. Better yet, pull your child from the Boy Scouts this instant. Lock them in a room until they are 18. Don't let them have any contact with the outside world except for a television that only broadcasts Christian TV networks. Then, when they're 18, don't let them join the military, since Obama has already outlawed normal, upright, heterosexual, like God intended people from joining. No, sad to say, nothing but homos in the armed services now. Send your children to a nice Christian academy where they will be shaped into men by other men who know how to deal with young boys with discipline and firm, rugged manliness, where boys live with other boys, like in the rowing galleries on Grecian warships, and the only thing they will ever know is the sting of the taskmaster's whip and the burn of dirty sweat in their eyes and the constant pounding of the drums, and they will learn to hate the homosexual lifestyle as the fierce disciplinarians take them and rape them over and over again while beating them and forcing them to rape each other while they watch and drink beer. Goodness, I think we need to turn the air conditioner up a bit. At any rate, there is scientific evidence to support everything I say. The National Institute for the Elimination of Homosexuality issued a study saying that homos are responsible for nearly all sex crimes involving children and homosexuals. And the Institute for the Blaming of All Pedophilia on the Homos cites its recent studies that prove 100% of all pedophilia is caused by homosexuals. So you can argue with me, but you can't argue with science. Now, armed with the facts, ask yourself, do you want your son coming home from the next Boy Scout jamboree soaked in urine with his fingernails reeking of poo? Or do you want your child to grow into a morally straight, normal young man who beats up sissies? I think we all know the answer to that one, don't we?
Less talk and more of it.
It began with a few words toward the end of the president's regularly scheduled Saturday morning radio broadcast. But before I wrap up our chat today, I'd like to say a few words about a dangerous new fad that's beginning to take hold in our high schools and colleges. Apparently, in the belief that it will get them high, or stoned, as the kids say, youngsters are taking rusty old railroad spikes and hammering them into their own foreheads with ball-peen hammers. I cannot stress this enough. This is a dangerous action, one I intend to look into. I will appoint Vice President Biden to head up a blue ribbon panel to see what we can do to stop this dangerous, self-destructive fad before it gets out of hand. Thank you, and God bless the United States of America. On Sunday, the First Lady appeared on Meet the Press, Vice President Biden appeared on Face the Nation, and Attorney General Eric Holder appeared on ABC's This Week, where he explained that pulling up railroad spikes for the purpose of driving them into one's own skull could be looked at as a criminal activity, because if a train were to derail due to missing railroad spikes, whoever removed the spikes could be considered as liable for the tragedy. The conservative reaction began on Monday morning with the Fox and Friends show.
Well, the nanny state is at it again, telling Americans what they can and cannot do with their own brains.
Right you are, Steve. In an effort to frighten American parents, President Obama has whipped up this railroad spike gate out of thin air. Gretchen, have you ever heard of kids driving railroad spikes into their own heads?
Monkeys are adorable.
Neither have I. And here to tell the truth about this fantasy scare tactic is Dr. Elmo Critter, a neurosurgeon from the University of Mississippi Medical Center. Dr. Critter, are kids getting high from driving railroad spikes into their own heads?
No, that's silly. Driving a railroad spike into the frontal lobes of your brain would perhaps produce a mild sense of euphoria at the best, but then there's the pain of getting the spike through your forehead skin, your skull, and the brain's protective covering.
But wouldn't it kill you, Doc?
Well, not necessarily, as if you're really dedicated, as you can see in the animation, if you're very careful with the placement of the spike, located directly between the brain's two hemispheres, you could likely survive having a railroad spike driven in between them. Brains have hemispheres, like globes. Globes are round. Well, we learn something new every morning on Fox and Friends. Reports of self-induced railroad spike brain injuries and death began to trickle into newsrooms, and Rush Limbaugh picked up on the controversy for his Monday noontime program.
It's just wild that Obama is scaring kids this way. Just like when his wife, Queen Jumbo, told the kids they should eat nothing but lettuce and filtered water while she gobbled down the French fries. It's just a bunch of nonsense. And as you saw on Fox and Friends this morning, a leading neurosurgeon said that driving a railroad spike into your own head is a perfectly safe thing to do if you do it carefully. Like smoking, like drinking. There are risks you take. But who is Obama to tell you you can't take a risk? That's what made America great. Where's Mayor Bloomberg on this? He said you can't have a 32-ounce big gulp. Well, faithful listeners across the fruited plains, I have just finished 3 32-ounce big gulps. And I will now demonstrate just how safe it is to drive a railroad spike into your own skull. Now, if I say anything even slightly stupid in the next few minutes, it'll be because of the state of euphoria caused by the penetration of the frontal lobes directly between the two hemispheres of the brain. Now watch as I, Rush Limbaugh, once again prove the nanny state does not have your best interests at heart and only wants to control you. Rusty, the spike, and the hammer, please. Thank you. And you want to make sure you use a clean spike for this. We can't emphasize that enough. Use a clean railroad spike because you don't want to get an infection. That could be deadly. All right? Here we go. Now I've marked the spot on my noble, manly forehead where the doc on Fox and Friends said the spike should go. And we're off.
Despite Rush Limbaugh's death as a result of driving a railroad spike into his own brain, the various Tea Party organizations started the meme that Obama had somehow provided a poisoned railroad spike to Limbaugh, and set about to prove, once and for all, that driving railroad spikes into your own foreheads was a perfectly safe, fun, family activity if done carefully. At a mass gathering of Tea Party activists, Dr. Jerome Corsi, one of the original Swift boaters and senior staff writer for WorldNet Daily, addressed a group of 500 angry white Americans who did not like being told what they could or could not drive into their own skulls.
Obama isn't even an American, let alone a doctor. How the hell does he think he can get away with telling honest, patriotic, God-fearing white American men and women what they can and cannot use with their brains? So, raise your railroad spikes to the skies in your right hand. Grasp the ball-peen hammers in your left hand. Place the point of the spike right between your eyes, just above the bridge of your nose. Now you want to angle the spike so that it goes straight in, okay? Parents with small children, do this to yourself first, then to your children after you're finished. On my mark, is everybody ready? Here we go! 3, 2, 1...
There were hundreds of such Tea Party gatherings all across the nation on Tuesday. At last report, 1.5 million Americans were killed by driving railroad spikes into their own heads, and that death toll continues to rise every day. But oddly enough, not everyone who attempted this fatal accomplishment was killed. In fact, when Sarah Palin addressed a Tea Party gathering on March 15th, she seemed just fine.
Kind of like getting a nipple pierced, but with a lot more blood. Other than that, piece of cake.
Railroad spikes and hammers bearing the CPAC logo were handed out. They're still removing bodies from the conference center at this hour.
Time to call your lawyer.
Honey, there's a package for you at the door.
Gee, I wonder who it's from.
There's no return address, but the postmark says it's from Slovenia.
Golly, I don't know anybody in Slovenia.
Well, what are you waiting for? Open it.
I'm just naive enough to do that, honey. I mean, what else are you gonna do with a mysterious package sent from some unknown person in Eastern Europe?
Well, what is it?
Well, mercy sakes alive. Someone has sent me a bowel movement.
Yes, nothing gets person's attention faster than a bowel movement in a Tupperware container. And here at Postapoop, we take great care to spell name correctly and put correct address on label so poop show up at right person home. It's the new-fashioned way. When you have something to say it with poop.
Honey, do we have a Tupperware bowl we can spare?
Sure. What do you need it for?
Well, it would be rude not to return the gesture.
You're so polite.
Here you go, you crazy Republican bastard.
Make sure you send enough to share.
No problem. I had tacos for lunch.
Postapoop, when you care enough to send the very worst. It's a great holiday gift.
It's time to change the subject.
Mr. Trump, just a few minutes ago, President Obama at the Asian Leaders Summit in California at a press conference, he had something to say about you I want to read, and I don't think you're going to be on his Christmas card list this year.
I don't mind. I've already...
Let me read you what President Obama said.
It's actually a great compliment.
Let me read you what President Obama said and get your response. I'm quoting President Obama. I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president, and the reason is because I have a lot of faith in the American people, and I think they recognize that being president is a serious job. It's not hosting a talk show or a reality show. It's not promotion. It's not marketing. It's hard. That's from President Obama.
He has done such a lousy job as president. You look at our budgets, you look at our spending, we can't beat ISIS. Obamacare is terrible. We're going to terminate it. We're going to absolutely terminate and replace it. I mean, you look at everything. Our borders are like Swiss cheese. This man has done such a bad job. He has set us back so far. And for him to say that actually is a great compliment, if you want to know the truth. And we just got a call on it coming over. The bridge is like packed, just so you understand. We were like in that car a long time. But we just gave one of the major networks called, and they wanted a response. And I said, you're lucky I didn't run last time when Romney ran, because you would have been a one-term president. That was my statement to him. And, you know, I was back in McCain when he ran, and, you know, frankly, that was going to be a tough one to win because a lot of things were going wrong, you know, for a Republican. To win that one was tough, in all fairness to John McCain. We should have won the Romney one because we had a failed president. We had a country that was failing, and we should have won that one. So I backed Romney, I backed McCain, both lost, and this time I said very simply, I said, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it right. We're going to win. We're not going to take this stuff anymore. We're going to do it right, and we're going to make America great again. You know, our whole theme is Make America Great Again, and that's what the whole deal is. We're going to make America great again.
Another sleazy politician.
And now news from our London correspondent. Sometimes the news is a bit slow crossing the transatlantic cable. More news when we return.
It must be true, 'cause I heard it on the radio. It must be true, it must be true.
Need a warm up on that coffee, hon?
No, I still got about a half cup here, but thanks. Hey, did you see this?
See what, hon?
Here, look at my iPad. there's a story here from CNN.com. Look, it says that General Mills is changing the sourcing of ingredients for its original Cheerios cereal after an activist group said that the company bowed to pressure and stopped using genetically modified ingredients.
Genetically modified ingredients? That doesn't sound healthy.
Well, they're still looking into it, I guess. But the spokesperson from General Mills, some guy, I can't pronounce his last name, said, "We switched from what we were using to non-genetically modified corn and non-genetically modified pure cane sugar." He said the company didn't change the formula and has never used genetically modified oats. The company has said that it has always used whole grain oats.
Yes, but for how long have they been using the genetically modified corn and genetically modified sugar cane?
Well, I have no idea. That's pretty much all Jimmy eats for breakfast, isn't it?
Well, he's a typical 4-year-old, honey. I mean, he likes Cheerios. It's his favorite. He likes the regular. He likes the honey nut. He likes the apple cinnamon. Do you think maybe it would be a good idea to take him to a doctor just to have him give him the once-over?
Well, I haven't really noticed anything different in his behavior, and he's been eating this stuff since he was doing the finger food thing from his high chair tray.
Yeah, he's a typical rambunctious 4-year-old, I'll say that. Oh, which reminds me, we gotta get him ready for his preschool. I'll give him a holler. Jimmy, come downstairs. Jimmy, put down Grandpa. Put down Grandpa. Jimmy. No. Grandpa does not go in your mouth. No. Now you swallowed him.
Oh, that son of mine.
We are sorry, so sorry, very sorry, I'm sorry, we'll never do it again.
You have been listening to the Internet Radio News Report of the News. Your newsreader is Bill Schmalfeld. The News Watch continues, day in and day out, on and on it goes, never stopping, like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning like a never-ending reel. Coming soon, our new website, www.newsreportofthenews.com. Keep a sharp ear peeled and download our free Hot Cheddar Injection app from the Google Play Store. Coming soon at iTunes. Join us again next time for the Internet Radio News Report of the News.